Most men today are making a choice society calls a complete failure. Not because they can't find someone, not because they're broken or afraid, because they've done the math, and the math doesn't work in their favor. 1 in 4 men under 30 isn't even trying to date, not because he can't, because he decided it wasn't worth it. Society reads this as a crisis, a generation of men failing to commit, failing to grow up. But what if the failure framing is exactly backwards? What if opting out isn't a breakdown? It's a rational decision. That's what we're unpacking today. The 3 core drivers behind why more men are choosing peace over partnership, the mental health load nobody talks about, the economic and legal exposure that comes with modern marriage, and the trust breakdown that's quietly making commitment feel irrational. These aren't emotional reasons. They're psychological and economic ones. And the question worth sitting with is choosing to stay single giving up, or is it waking up? Anton is 54, a widowed engineer, and he's had a front row seat to the modern dating market imploding. He's not guessing at the pattern. He's watched it play out in real time in the lives of people around him. His perspective shows up throughout this video, and it's worth paying attention to. Section 1. The modern dating market is structurally broken. Picture a guy in his early 30s, stable job, emotionally available, genuinely ready for something real. He downloads 3 apps, spends 6 months swiping, and manages to land 4 dates. None of them go past the second meeting. He's not unattractive. He's not socially broken. He's just operating inside a system that was never designed to get him where he wants to go. That's not a personal failure. That's a systems problem. Dating apps aren't built to find you a partner. They're built to keep you searching. The business model depends on you staying in the pool, not getting out of it. Every match, every notification, every "someone liked you" is a dopamine loop pulling you back in. The product isn't connection, it's engagement. And as long as you're engaged, they're profitable. You know that feeling when you're 40 minutes into a Netflix menu, unable to pick anything? Dating apps weaponized that exact feeling and aimed it at your love life. Psychologist Barry Schwartz called this the paradox of choice. Too many options don't make you happier. They make you worse at deciding. And when every swipe suggests someone slightly better might be one scroll away, nobody commits to the person in front of them. The illusion of infinite options destroyed realistic expectations on both sides. Nobody wants to settle when the next profile is one swipe away. Nobody wants to invest in someone imperfect when the app quietly hints there might be someone better just below the fold. So people keep scrolling. Relationships that could have worked never get the chance to breathe because the exit always feels just a tap away. What gets filtered out in this system is exactly what makes a relationship last: patience, presence, and the willingness to invest in someone real instead of theoretical. Men who bring those qualities get passed over by a market that rewards novelty over substance and aesthetics over emotional availability. Anton puts it plainly. Nobody told these men the rulebook had changed. The men who keep playing by the old rules, showing up with genuine intent and honest expectations, keep losing. Not because something is wrong with them, because the game was restructured around a completely different set of incentives. So the market is rigged. That part is structural, not personal. But the damage doesn't stop at your dating life. It goes deeper, into your nervous system, your sleep, your baseline sense of calm. And that's where the cost really starts to add up. Section 2. The mental health load nobody talks about. Picture a guy who's 2 years into a relationship that looked fine from the outside. He's attentive, he communicates, he shows up. But inside it, he's walking on eggshells every single day, managing her anxiety, managing his own, bracing for the next mood shift, the next argument that comes out of nowhere. He finally leaves, and here's what surprises him. He doesn't feel free. He feels hollow, more depleted than when he started. Like the relationship didn't just cost him time, it cost him something he can't easily name. What he's describing is the mental health load, and almost nobody talks about it directly. The mental health load is the invisible emotional labor that modern dating puts on your nervous system. It's the performance anxiety before every date, wondering if you're presenting the right version of yourself. It's the rejection cycling, putting yourself out there, getting ignored or dismissed, recalibrating, trying again, repeated often enough that your baseline confidence starts to erode. It's the hypervigilance that develops inside volatile relationships, where you're constantly reading the room, scanning for danger signs, regulating two people's emotions at once while pretending everything is fine. Your body keeps a running tab. Bad relationship stress raises your cortisol. That's the hormone that puts you on high alert. It wrecks your sleep. It dulls your focus at work. Small things start to irritate you more than they should. You're not falling apart, but you're not fully okay either, and you can't quite pin down why. The toll is real even when nothing dramatic is happening. Now, contrast that with what men who've stepped back from dating consistently describe: a baseline quiet they hadn't felt in years. Not happiness necessarily, not the highs that a good relationship can bring, but something steadier, the absence of bracing. Your nervous system stops running in low-level threat mode. You stop preparing for conversations that might go sideways. That's not loneliness. That's regulation. Here's the shift worth paying attention to. Most men don't move from "I'm afraid of being alone" to "I don't care about connection." The shift is more specific than that. They move from "I'm afraid of being alone" to "I'm afraid of losing the peace I've finally found." And that's actually a psychologically mature recalibration. It means you've stopped making decisions from scarcity and started making them from self-awareness. Anton understands both sides. He had a real partnership, the kind that builds you up rather than quietly dismantling you. He knows what that feels like, and he also knows exactly how different it is from a relationship that drains you incrementally, so gradually you don't notice until you're running on empty. His observation: most men can't tell the difference while they are inside it. The damage registers later in the exhaustion, the emotional flatness, the sense that something got taken from them they never agreed to give. That exhaustion isn't a character flaw, it's information. Your mind and body are running a cost-benefit analysis in real time. Every day you stay in a situation that costs more than it returns. At some point, the calculation becomes impossible to ignore. And if the mental cost doesn't get your attention, the financial one will. Section 3. The economic and legal calculus. Picture a man who spent 10 years building something real. A business he started from scratch, grew through nights and weekends, and finally got to a place where it was producing real income, real stability. He meets someone, gets married, genuinely believes in it. 3 years later, he's sitting across a table from a lawyer, negotiating which assets he gets to keep. The business he built before the marriage, the retirement account he funded, the house he put the down payment on, all of it subject to division under laws he never read and didn't think he needed to. That scenario isn't rare, and it's one of the core reasons men are running a different calculation than previous generations did. Roughly 50% of marriages in the U.S. end in divorce. That number has been cited so often it's lost its weight, so let's put it back in context. If someone told you before signing a contract, "By the way, there's a 50% chance you'll lose half of everything you own," would you call that a good deal? Or would you call that something a lawyer should look at first? Somehow, when that exact risk is attached to marriage, the cultural response is to call you unromantic for asking the question. This isn't an anti-marriage argument, it's a risk literacy argument. You wouldn't sign a business contract with a 50% failure rate and no meaningful exit clause without reading every line of the fine print. Most men sign a marriage license with less scrutiny than they give a phone plan. And the legal architecture of modern marriage doesn't protect them when things go wrong. It was built in a different era, under different assumptions about who earns, who owns, and who leaves. Men who've watched friends go through this don't talk about it the way culture does. They don't frame it as heartbreak or personal failure. They talk about it the way you talk about a system that ran exactly as designed, just not in your favor. Losing a home, losing retirement savings, losing regular access to children they love, reduced to scheduled visits in a shared custody agreement. These aren't abstract risks. They're outcomes that played out in real life for people they knew. Anton approaches this the way he approaches every complex system, by looking at the failure rate. As an engineer, any process with a 50% failure rate doesn't get described as functional. It gets flagged, reviewed, and redesigned. He's not cynical about love. He's precise about risk. His read: men who treat marriage as a romantic leap of faith without understanding the legal and financial structure they're leaping into, are making an uninformed decision that the institution itself won't protect them from regretting. Knowing this doesn't make you bitter. It makes you literate, and literacy is where rational decisions start. Section 4. The Trust Breakdown. Picture a man who did everything right inside a relationship. He was consistent, he communicated, he stayed loyal when it would have been easy not to. Then, one day, not through a dramatic confrontation, but through a quiet accumulation of small signs, he finds out his partner had been building an emotional exit for months. New friendships he wasn't introduced to, conversations she shut down when he walked in. She was already halfway out while he was still fully in, still investing, still believing they were building something together. He wasn't blindsided by a single event. He was blindsided by a withdrawal so gradual he never thought to look for it. That experience is more common than most men will admit out loud, and it points to something beyond individual betrayal, a structural problem with how modern relationships handle commitment. The paradox of choice doesn't stop at swiping. It follows people into relationships they're already in. When both partners carry the psychological awareness that other options exist, and dating apps make sure that awareness never fully fades, commitment stops being a decision you make once and starts being a decision you have to keep remaking every day. That's an exhausting condition for loyalty to survive in. Commitment becomes conditional, quietly renegotiated based on how well things are going this week, this month, this argument. And the moment it becomes conditional, it stops functioning as commitment at all. Trust breaks down on two separate levels, and it's worth separating them. The first is personal. Has this specific person actually earned my trust through consistent behavior over time? The second is systemic. Can I trust the institution of modern relationships to reward investment, loyalty, and vulnerability? Both questions matter. And right now, a growing number of men are answering no to both. The data backs the instinct. Infidelity rates haven't dropped. Emotional unavailability gets normalized through terms like situationship, a word that didn't exist 20 years ago because the dynamic it describes wasn't considered acceptable enough to need a name. Commitment is increasingly framed as something you offer provisionally, based on how you feel in the moment, rather than something you build deliberately over time. These aren't just cultural observations, they're incentive structures, and the incentive structures in modern dating don't reward loyalty on either side. Men contribute to this environment too. The point isn't to assign fault, it's to identify the conditions. And the condition is this: the modern dating landscape actively works against the slow, consistent, unglamorous process that trust actually requires. Trust needs time, repetition, and low-stakes moments where someone chooses you without anything dramatic on the line. The app environment selects against all of those things. It rewards first impressions, surface signals, and novelty, exactly the wrong variables for predicting long-term reliability. Anton's read is direct. Trust isn't something you decide to give. It's something you observe being earned over months through behavior that holds up when it would have been easier to bail. The modern dating environment doesn't create conditions where that kind of observation is possible. It moves too fast, values the wrong things, and treats depth as a liability. So the rational response to a low-trust environment isn't to try harder or stay more open. It's to require more evidence before you put real skin in the game. Section 5. The Reframe. Anton's mic drop. Stack all of this together, and you arrive at something society doesn't want to say out loud. Anton isn't bitter. He isn't nursing old wounds or broadcasting grievances. He's clear, and clarity is different from cynicism. He's a man who loved someone deeply, lost her, and then spent years watching the world around him shift into something he barely recognized. He's not angry at what modern dating became. He just sees it without the filter most people keep on to avoid feeling the full weight of it. So here's the reframe. Society tells you that dying alone is the tragedy, that the worst outcome a man can face is reaching the end of his life without a partner, that solitude equals failure, and that a man who opts out of relationships has somehow fallen short of what a full life looks like. But that framing only holds if you don't look at the alternative clearly. Losing your mental health to a relationship that slowly dismantles your sense of self, that's a tragedy. Watching a decade of financial discipline disappear into a divorce settlement you never anticipated, that's a tragedy. Giving your loyalty completely to someone who is already emotionally halfway out the door, that's a tragedy. These aren't hypotheticals, they're outcomes. And choosing to avoid them with full awareness of what you're doing and why isn't failure. It's the first decision you've made with your eyes actually open. Here's the complexity worth holding. Opting out doesn't have to be permanent. It doesn't have to be a declaration. It's simply a refusal to enter something without your eyes open, a refusal to treat hope as a substitute for judgment. That's not giving up on connection. That's finally deciding connection has to be worth what it costs. Section 6, the Healthy Pathways Framework. None of this means the door is closed forever. It means when you do decide to step back into the arena, you go in differently. Here's what changes when you go in with your eyes open. Vet for values alignment before emotional investment, not after 3 months when you're attached and rationalizing. Before. Watch how someone handles disappointment, disagreement, and situations where they don't get what they want. Behavior under low-level friction tells you more than any conversation ever will. Give it months, not weeks, before you decide what you're actually looking at. Set your non-negotiables before you're emotionally involved. Once attachment forms, the brain starts bargaining. You'll talk yourself into tolerating things you swore you wouldn't, because leaving now feels harder than adjusting your standards. Write those non-negotiables down before you meet someone. Hold them there. Require reciprocity early and watch whether it holds. Emotional labor should flow both ways from the beginning. Financial transparency, conflict resolution, the willingness to have uncomfortable conversations without shutting down. These aren't advanced relationship skills you introduce later. They're baseline indicators of whether someone is actually a partner or just a person you're hoping will become one. Anton's final word on this is simple. The goal was never to stay single forever. The goal is to stay whole. And the only reason to bring someone into your life is if they genuinely add to that wholeness, not subtract from it slowly in ways you won't fully register until you're already depleted. The men opting out of modern dating aren't broken. They're responding to a system with real structural flaws, and they're doing it rationally. Maybe the real question was never, why won't men date? Maybe it was always, what would this have to look like for the risk to be worth it? If that reframe landed for you, subscribe. More of this every week.